Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of The Bullet. My name is Paul Lathrop. I am the Deputy Director of New Media for the Second Amendment Foundation. Joining me today, live from California, is Craig DeLuz from The Rundown. Craig, thanks for joining us today, man.
Always a pleasure to be with you, sir.
I have purposefully been keeping the big guerrilla news of the weekend off of. I haven't talked about the shooting in Sacramento purposefully yesterday, and I've mostly kept my mouth shut on social media about it today, trying to adhere to the 72-hour rule. Let details come out, let facts start to be known before you open your mouth. And I think enough facts have come out, and my boss has released a press release, and so I think now the gloves can come off, and we can start to talk about this. For folks that may just be stumbling on the bullet for the first time, Craig, this is your area of the country. You are in the Sacramento area.
It is 15-minute drive from here. I'm downtown Sacramento all the time. I've been out in the evening in downtown Sacramento. Once again, this is my home. This is literally the belly of the beast, where you have the anti-gun leftists seeking to do everything possible to undermine our fundamental rights to keep and bear arms, while at the same time doing everything possible to make us victims on the streets as they decriminalize crime, and we wind up getting what we've got.
Yeah, absolutely. For those that may have been absolutely under a rock since Sunday morning, at 2 a.m. Sunday morning, California time, there was a very nasty shooting in downtown Sacramento, just as bars let out. There were 6 people killed and 12 injured, at least as last count I saw. And it was perpetrated by 2 people have been arrested. 2 brothers have been arrested. I've seen several. That's today's. That's what happens today. Everybody's filming everything with their cell phone. I've seen several cell phone videos of the event, and what appears to me is one obviously heavily modified firearm and one semi-automatic firearm is going off. And why I say heavily modified is Uzis don't shoot as fast as what I heard one of them shoot. And the other one is bang, 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 bang. That's the cadence. The other one is burp, and that's about the extent of the other one. So, obviously, what we hear from press releases, at least one of the firearms was stolen. Both of the people arrested are multiple-time felons. Murder is illegal. Possession of firearms by felons is illegal. Modifying firearms to full auto is illegal. And yet we have our illustrious president calling for more gun control. Wow. Craig, you're right there. You have more to say, I'm sure, than I do.
Well, I think, first of all, it's important to understand that there's a lot of information here, and there's a lot of information that, quite frankly, there's a lot that is confirmed about what we, and when I say we, I mean those of us who work on this issue, on the Second Amendment rights, who deal with this issue, already knew kind of to be the case, but it confirms all of it. Number one, gun control doesn't work. And it doesn't work because, as the president said, all of the things he said he wanted to do, well, almost every single one of those items are in place here in the state of California. There is a ban on unserialized firearms, which they refer to as ghost guns, that already exists here in the state of California. There's already background checks, universal background checks, not just for firearms, but for ammunition here in the state of California. That did not stop it. Ban on quote unquote prohibited persons not being able to possess firearms. Well, guess what? This person was already a prohibited person. That's already illegal in the state of California. Standard capacity magazines, once again, already illegal here in the state of California. And yet and still, this still happened. The interesting thing is that they did not address is once again, how we decriminalize crime. And as we've decriminalized crime and taken people who are convicted felons, put them back out on the street, and then we tell them, if you commit a crime, chances are, you're just going to get a slap on the wrist. Then we wonder why they go and commit crimes. Now, the other thing that this confirms to us is another thing. Number one, we know that, most gun crimes are basically conducted by, usually they have to do with gangs and or drugs. We don't necessarily have all of the information yet, but we do know that the two people who were arrested, young African-American men, were involved in a shootout with at least one other individual. How do we know this? Because one of the two brothers who was arrested, turns out he was one of the 12 injured people who was taken to the hospital. Mm-hmm. He was immediately a person of interest. Now, if you are shot, that pretty much means someone was shooting at you. So they're probably going to find the other perpetrators are probably going to be amongst the people who were shooting at this particular individual. What is so beyond frustrating with all of this is just how much the policymakers have come out and all they're focusing on is guns, 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 guns. Here's the thing, and this is the thing. You had a group of people who wanted to cause harm to another group of people. They made a plan, and they got the tools, and they went out and they executed that plan. However poorly they did so. Now, let's say you eliminate guns from the table, from the argument. That does not change the fact that you still had a group of people, or individual or a group of people, who sought to cause harm to people, who developed a plan, who would be able to develop a plan, go get the tools, maybe not firearms, but let's be honest, they could still get access to firearms because criminals don't pay attention to the law. They break the law, still implement a plan, and go and implement that plan. The problem is not a gun issue. The problem is a people issue. And even the former Sacramento police chief, the one who just stepped down, the one who just retired, when they were interviewing him, he said, look, if we got rid of all the guns in Sacramento, that would not have kept something like this from happening.
Right. I want to get a couple comments in here real quick because we're getting, and I knew this would happen. The comments are just screaming in, but I want to get this one in first. Tom Walls, who happens to be one of our Friday guys that sit in the commentator seat. He wants to know, Craig, is that part of town in or near disputed gang territory? Is that something you would know, bud?
I would have no idea. I don't. It's the downtown area. So between 9th and 13th Street. That's kind of between where the K Street Mall is, where there's a shopping mall, as well as what you have there is the new Golden One Arena that was built all the way down to 13th Street. So that whole area is been kind of revamped and remodeled. There's dining, there are bars, there's between K Street and then, oh, by the way, L Street, just so you know, that's kind of right across the street from the state capitol. So I don't know that it's disputed gang territory since Democrats pretty much run that building.
All right. Yeah, and you don't dare go against Democrats in California. I mean, holy cow.
Yeah.
They're the big gang. Smeggy on the YouTube side, if it's only illegal 7 times over, they wouldn't have done it. See, it was only illegal 5 times. If it would have been illegal 2 more times, they wouldn't have done it.
Well, and once again, this goes back to and I tell you, I could have, the words that came out of the former police chief's mouths were almost just like mine, is we have a problem where we have young people We have people who've decided that the best way to resolve their anger, their frustration, their conflicts, whatever they may be, is to inflict violence on other individuals or to themselves. We've got to figure out, how do we engage with this generation, with people, with those folks and get them to see that, look, there's another way. There's another way to address conflict. There's another way to deal with your frustration and your anger. And until we start dealing with the people element and stop worrying about the tools that they use. I mean, I know this is an old cliche, but if they had been driving through, if they had decided that they were going to run people down with their car, we would not be talking about car control.
Mm-hmm. You're absolutely right. The number one way to end this, and because you do not see this very often in Dallas, you do not see this very often in places like, excuse me, in places that have large areas that are generally gun free. The way to end this is to arm the population. I'll be quite honest, if there would have been a citizen there that were able to draw their own firearm and end this quickly, the body count instead of 6 might have been 3 or 2. Or
well,
1.
you know what, you're probably right, but let's keep in mind, if this was a shootout between two rival gangs, there was somebody there who was seeking to take out the other side.
Yes, mean, there was.
Yeah.
But you don't get gang shootouts in Dallas very often simply because...
Well, you know, to be honest with you, you don't get many gang shootouts in Sacramento either. I mean, this is not a common occurrence for here in Sacramento, California. And keep in mind, this is a county now that has over 10,000 concealed carry permits in this county. So this is not a common thing.
Okay.
At least not here.
Well,
we're not Oakland, we're not Stockton, we're not LA.
That kind of lines up with what Charlie was, his comment. Let me get this one in. California buys more guns legally than any other state. Irony. Well, yeah, and California is a huge... There are a huge amount of firearms owners in California. I just wish they'd all get together and vote.
Well, there are more firearm owners in California than any other state in the country, and that's largely because we are the largest. The problem is being a firearm owner does not necessarily mean you are pro-gun. There are many who bought a firearm for safety, or something happened, or whether it was the pandemic or whether it was the riots, and they bought their firearm. They maybe went to the range once, and now it's sitting either in a drawer, in a dresser drawer, or in a closet somewhere, and they're not utilizing it. There are people who bought firearms a long time ago, and for them it's okay, I'm glad I got it, but I'm not really fully informed about what that means and about the right to keep and bear arms. And then there are some of those who are kind of the elitists who believe that, well, I'm a responsible gun owner, but most of the folks out there will not be responsible gun owners. Therefore, we need to restrict their rights.
I got mine, and y'all just,
Right. Y'all are too responsible. Not everybody out there is as responsible as I am, even though I have never taken a class, even though I have never bothered to try and take training, even though I don't go shooting on a regular basis in order to make sure that, or go training on a regular basis in order to make sure that I'm effective with my firearm, even though I don't even bother to study or understand exactly what use of force law is in my state. So, unfortunately, being a gun owner does not necessarily make you pro-gun.
Amen. Somebody that is pro-gun, I had a great phone conversation with him the other day. Patrick Collins commented, makes you wonder what gun law they missed that would have prevented this from happening. It's almost like current laws and restrictions don't work. Yeah, and Patrick nails it. I don't think there are any laws that would work.
Patrick, let me hip you to something. And I know this is a weird thing. You probably have experienced this in Georgia, but I can tell you my experience in California is this: criminals, they don't obey the law. So when you pass a law, it's kind of like, eh. I mean, that's what you're dealing with.
Yeah. You know, we could get rid of a whole bunch of crime if we just made it illegal to smoke crack. You know, just make crack illegal. Oh, yeah. You know, and then the drug problem will just go away.
Mm-hmm. Let's make it illegal to use illegal guns during the commission of illegal crimes.
Mm-hmm.
That's the law we should pass.
Yes, absolutely. If you're going to do something illegal, you got to leave that illegal gun at home.
Right. If you're going to commit a crime, you can't do it with an illegal gun.
Yeah. Just one. Now, and I want to go back to they're absolutely going. The White House is going full force on the ghost gun thing, and what this is, what my understanding is, and my ears tell me this is a modified gun. I don't think this is a homemade firearm. The rate of fire from this thing that I heard is in the high thousands of RPM of rounds per minute. It was just a burp. There was no, you could not discern individual rounds coming out of this like you can with an M4 or something like that. This was a less than a second to empty a 30-round magazine.
Wow. I will just tell you once again, and this is the thing that I will say, is that's already illegal.
Mm-hmm.
It is literally already illegal to do that. And, the problem is people who are proposing these laws, they don't understand the technology. I don't proclaim to be an expert, but I know enough to know that their perspective is full of a bunch of misrepresentations and in some cases flat out lies. And it's very difficult when you tell people that, look, yeah, that's already illegal. What are you going to make it illegaler?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, what's the next step? Are we going to put them on double secret probation?
Right. Well, but the problem is what they're doing is they're now putting in place laws that first and foremost would do absolutely nothing to address shootings like this that take place. But they use that as the emphasis, as the motivation for what it is that they're doing. Once again, as Rahm Emanuel said, never let a good crisis go to waste. In the end, they're going to pass laws that are only going to make it harder for law-abiding citizens to be able to defend themselves against these criminals who are seeking to do them harm. And there's no other way to put it. But they don't care because they're not interested in actually protecting people. They're interested in looking like they're doing something.
Well, and I wonder.
And by the way, just a note. Keep in mind, this is the second high-profile event involving a firearm here in Sacramento, in the Sacramento area, in a month, in an area that has the strictest gun laws in the entire country. So once again, what we know is this: gun control exists, and gun control does not work.
And California is widely touted as having the most restrictive gun laws in the nation.
Oh yeah, but here's what we also have. We also have the most permissive criminal laws. We've decriminalized crime. We've put criminals out on the street, and at the same time, we have told them that there will be little to no consequences. Oh, I forgot. We've largely eliminated bail. We've made it a sanctuary state. So if you are a violent criminal from another country, we will not tell ICE that you are here. We will not work with ICE in order to make sure that you are, as a violent criminal, no longer able to be on our streets. All of that having been said, all of that, and yet they talk about none of that. All of that, by the way, all had their own roles in the two shootings that have taken place here in Sacramento, And yet you don't hear any of the politicians who supported those things saying a word about it.
Absolutely. And then I honestly, I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist. I don't want to sound like a racist, but I'm going to sound a little bit like both here in just a second. This is going to disappear from the news in about 24 hours because these were gang members. Because it doesn't fit the main. They weren't bald white guys, okay? They were gangbangers. They were people that the media doesn't want to portray as committing crimes.
Well, but you and I know, because we've seen the data, that when it comes to firearms, when it comes to crimes involving firearms, they tend to be the largest group. But here's the other thing. This is the other thing that they will not tell you, is that their victims are largely other people of color. When you go through, I encourage you, go look at the stories about the victims. Once again, they're victimizing people within their own community. Mm-hmm. They are the victims. It's funny how the politicians will divorce. They'll talk about, oh, well, you know, black people, the people of color are the victims of gun violence. Well, guess what? It's because they also tend to be the perpetrators of gun violence. And instead, once again, looking at the core issues, what are the root causes that are causing people to decide to go down this road? Why are we, and I'm not saying that people of color are particularly evil or prone to crime. I'm saying that there's something going on. There's a root cause that needs to be addressed, and it's not guns. It is not guns. Let's talk about that root cause. Let's address that root cause. And oh, by the way, it's not racism either. It's not white supremacy. It's not structural racism, all right? It's a root cause, and let's talk about what that root cause is. Let's identify it. Let's address it so that we can stop these events from happening.
Let me get. I want to get to this. And my boss, as I said early in the show, my boss did release. Alan Gottlieb did release a press release. I want to read that press release real quick here, if I could. Bellevue, Washington, the Citizens Committee for the Right to Keep and Bear Arms today blasted President Joe Biden for shamelessly exploiting the tragic mass killing in Sacramento to further his gun prohibition agenda by calling for bans on so-called ghost guns and demanding background checks for all gun sales. 6 people died and a dozen more were wounded in the attack, which occurred just after 2 a.m. Sunday. 2 brothers, one of whom was injured, are now in custody. Quote, Biden's response to the Sacramento killings is a little more than a shell game, said KBA Chairman Alan Gottlieb. He wants to ban ghost guns without any evidence such a gun was involved. He wants to require background checks for all gun sales, but individuals now in custody were prohibited persons who would not have undergone such a background check in the first place. Biden wants to ban so-called assault weapons and high-capacity magazines, but police reports say they recovered an illegally altered, stolen handgun that fires like a machine gun, which is already illegal. He wants to repeal gun manufacturers' protection from liability, which would have had no impact on stopping this violent act, and the president knows it. The suspect already in custody in this case are brothers, he added, and one had an outstanding warrant for his arrest on a charge of misdemeanor domestic violence. Both have been described as prohibited persons with criminal records, which means neither can legally possess a firearm. There are existing laws that already address this situation, yet Biden and many of his cronies are callously already using this tragedy to advance an anti-gun rights agenda with absolutely no relationship to the crime. While the rest of us are wondering why such people are on the streets possessing guns they shouldn't have under existing laws, Gottlieb said, the president is promoting an agenda he knows would not have made a difference. That isn't being disingenuous, it's simply dishonest. The president needs to reload his brain before shooting off his mouth, Gottlieb stated. I love that last sentence.
I love it, but in the president's defense, and this is the hard part about calling him a liar, is because I don't believe he is cognitively there. So he is literally reading whatever they put in front of him. His administration is lying, but I just don't believe that he is not functioning as our president. He is. I just believe that in the end, his administration needs to be held accountable. It is beyond disingenuous. Everything that was said in his entire statement, like I said, almost everything with the exception of removing the liability, or allowing people to sue gun owners or gun manufacturers for legally selling a firearm, manufacturers or dealers. Other than that, everything else already exists in California, and that is currently on the agenda. There was a hearing today. I haven't checked to see if it's actually passed or not. It passed the initial committee yet. So you have your anti-gun haven right here in Sacramento, California, where the very event you are decrying took place. So if it didn't work here, what makes you think it's going to work on a national scale?
Absolutely. I want to get this one in. Tom Walls again, and Tom has a great point. Cain killed Abel with a rock. God didn't blame the rock.
Well, there you go. But here's the thing. We know Biden is far from God.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
And T also said, this was a little older comment, Your Honor, the defendant was just turning his life around. You know, we're going to hear that. But you're going to have to do a deep dig news search. And even today, I make my living doing news searches. I really do. That is a large part of my job, is doing news searches to come up with topics on a daily basis to talk about on this program. And I had to do fairly deep news searches to come up with what I came up with for today. And that's fairly surprising because this is supposed to be a big news story. Already it's starting to disappear.
Well, keep in mind, now here's the other thing. If this was basically a shootout, for all we know, these two guys were defending themselves against someone else who was shooting at them.
Yeah.
I don't know the details. Were they in a vehicle or on the street? Did they shoot first? Did the other side shoot first? There's a lot of stuff we don't know. So just like in law, and there's incidents involving law enforcement use of force, as in the case where, other cases where you have civilian use of force, like with Trayvon Martin, I'm the first person to tell you, look, we need to wait for all of this to kind of bear out and wait till we have all the facts. But here's what we do know. We do know that these two individuals were prohibited persons. We do know that they were not supposed to be in possession of firearms. Now, once again, we don't know, because the other thing is this: neither one of them, as far as I know, has been charged with murder or attempted murder. Simply, they've been charged with discharging firearms or use of firearms in a public place, as well as possession of firearms by prohibited persons, and I believe one person's gotten a charge for having an illegal weapon, a modified weapon, which is a machine defined as a machine gun. Mm-hmm. But no one's been charged with murder or attempted murder yet. So there's still a lot to learn about this situation. And the more we learn, the more we're going to find out this fits the narrative of a typical shooting. It just has more people. That it's not going to fit the anti-gun narrative that they're trying to put out there. And they're going to try and find a way to blame the gun and not the laws that allowed felons to walk the streets with guns.
Absolutely. I want to get two more comments in here real quick. James over on the Facebook side says, do you honestly believe in nations such as the United Kingdom or Australia there are no violent crimes? Use common sense and see how sick the left are to use this situation for political gain. James, I will tell you this. Violent crime in Australia and the UK is very gruesome. I could tell you stories from the UK where people are using knives horrifically, and there's knife laws in the UK because people, when you outlaw guns, people will use what they get a hold of, and that's knives and swords. And that is
exactly what is happening. And James, I will just put it to you this way: common sense is not that common. What is common is what I like to refer to as common nonsense.
Yeah. And then Michael over on the YouTube side says Biden thinks he's God. I don't know. Biden. I don't know that Biden can think much anymore. That man is so far down the senility road. I think honestly he's got an earpiece. He just says, you know that movie. I'm trying to remember the movie. What movie am I trying to think of? It's a comedy. Anchorman.
Bernie's?
Anchorman. Yeah, he just says what's on the script, period. That is our president. He just says what's on the script.
Barely says what's on the script. But I'll just put it to you this way. He assumes that his ability and his power to summon tapioca at his whim makes him God.
Or ice cream cones.
Or ice cream cones.
Anyway, we are, and I knew this was going to be an overtime, a magnum episode of The Bullet. Let's go ahead and start wrapping things up here a little bit. What I want to do, if I could, Craig, I want to wrap. I want to just kind of go ahead and sum this up as, look, from everything we've seen, there were so many things that were illegal about this. No additional laws could have done anything to stop this because so many laws were broken to start with.
I will put it to you this way: no gun laws. Quite frankly, if we had a system of government, if we had decided that we were going to hold criminals accountable for the crimes that they actually commit, I think things could have been different. I don't know that they would have, but right now we in the state of California have basically decided that we're going to tell criminals that you are actually the victims, and we're going to allow you to get away with a whole bunch of stuff. And until the people stand up to the government and say, stop coming after us law-abiding citizens who simply want to defend ourselves, and start going after the criminals from which we are trying to defend ourselves, right? The ones who you keep putting back out on the streets so that they can victimize us. Until the people stand up and start to hold those elected officials accountable, nothing is going to change in places like California.
Yeah, I 100% agree. All right, we're going to go ahead and I think that's a good place to set this down. Craig, before we do, tell everybody about the rundown and how they can find your stuff, man.
Okay, you'll find the rundown Monday through Friday. We are on YouTube. We are on Facebook. You can find us on Rumble. By the way, you can also now not just listen to us on wherever you get your podcasts, Apple iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. You can also watch and listen on Spotify. So we're all over the place. We're also on OpsLens. We actually come on an hour later on OpsLens. So anyway, check us out. You can also find us at therundown.us. Very
cool. And I mean, highly entertaining show. You and Mike do an awesome job with that.
It's one of those things. We're just two guys who like hanging out and talking about stuff. So we just get to invite some folks to hang out and talk with us.
Very, very cool. Well, on my part, I want to invite everybody, come join me the rest of the week, 5 p.m. Central Time, and his partner Mike will be here Thursday. Everybody, thank you for watching. Thanks for joining in and commenting. If it weren't for you folks, there wouldn't be a reason for us to be here and doing this. Thanks again.
Amen.
And Come join us again tomorrow, 5 p.m. Central Time. We'll see you then, everybody.